Thank you.
The project that we did, the one where we had to fill those two squares with like different value line. I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah,
something similar to that.
The performance based
Yeah.
project, yeah.
That's the one.
Got a little bit of like African influence too, so.
So Professor,
Yeah.
so for example, if I take picture of a street light, that would be red light, right?
It depends.
Why do you are for
Yeah, it depends on what you're working with. Depends on if you've diffused that street light in any way. It depends on the framing that you have. There's because if you have a street light and your subject is standing and you're underneath it, you'd actually get backlight.
Oh,
Right. So it sort of depends. Also, depending on where you're standing, if you're right in front, like the street light's up above and you're shooting from right this way, you're actually gonna get hard.
hard lighting.
Yeah, because what's gonna happen, we're gonna go over lighting a little bit today, but the shadows are gonna fall under the nose and like your eyes are gonna become dark pockets. It's almost like scary movie lighting, but backwards.
But we can use like objects, right, just to like, instead of people.
I would say to use objects instead of people, something that you can stabilize, something that doesn't move.
But that would be hard lighting. Direct street light.
It depends.
Oh.
There you are. Depends on the light bulb.
Yeah.
No, that, I mean, depends, you're right next to it then.
That is hard lighting. You put like my like.
If this is your light, then you're here, not hard light.
Oh.
If you're here,
But if it's
that's
diffused.
But if you go back, it's right here.
It's like, this is not.
Yeah, if you use it like this, it's not hard light anymore.
Yeah, that's.
It depends on the character of the case.
It also depends on the distance of the light from the subject, because you end up with something called the inverse square law, where the further away that the light source is to the subject, the light falls off faster. And then additionally, the further away the subject is from the background, the faster the light falls off the subject from the background. That gets into physics. You don't need to know that.
Okay, so this was.
Other side.
Yeah.
You want to go Friday?
The intent was to go on Friday night,
But
but I think a lot of Friday from it's Friday because.
I might have run into my friend's friend is visiting, so I was yeah, I wanna meet her, I wanna meet her.
Which is a nice one, for a while.
Yeah, we'll keep us busy.
Yeah, give me, you guys keep it busy, it's your responsibility.
No, I'm not doing this responsibility. I immediately.
But, yeah, if.
I just have to use wrong. can. I know I used to work as a fair.
I did a lot of photographs. I did work in photographs.
That's hard.
I was mostly focusing on the two.
But it's pickleball, I might. I've been wanting to play that.
Yeah.
I know.
Oh shit.
But these days I feel like kids are worse than we were.
That is
I think you're equally as bad.
No, my mom.
Because we tend to forget what we did just so it's convenient for
No,
us.
my mom told it because there's someone came to our house and she was like, you guys had the fridge. He was going downstairs without permission, like in the basement. And then she was like, you never did that. I was like, I know, I would never go to someone's house and open their fridge. I was definitely
I would.
Yeah.
You like see
I can't.
Yes, right, but if you like came to some, if you were like a child and you went to a state's house, you wouldn't open his
Like a child is probably different, but my dad will probably be like, you know what? Like no more like allowing.
So allowance, oh,
Yeah,
I never
it's like-
got an allowance.
Well, I mean, technically it's allowance, but I have to work.
Okay, I did the work.
I asked.
Yeah.
I bet worst case.
So my best friend's name is Cam, and I have a friend from
Bring mom.
So
What a friend.
How many friends do you have? How many?
I have two friends that live in church outside of this.
How many?
And so one of my friends is a friend that's visiting, and so I was gonna hang out with them all day. Yeah, me too. Where do your friends live?
Yes, he.
My friend lives in further down, it's supposed to be.
The way she said it, doesn't.
Dude, I think I was saying.
Like there's like other days that we Yeah, I saw that.
Another one also lives in 15 years.
Like,
So you felt like a senior? My wife is like, what was it? 1600.
That's pretty good.
I saw that a bit. It has to be South. Yeah, yeah.
My friend is like 17.
Like,
For 2 hours.
Yeah.
It's too
but we were there.
I think yeah.
Ah.
I have because I have masters. So I pay 9, so like because my closet is like literally it's a door that opens and then there's surrounding walk-in closet. Twin bed in my closet. You can also put a twin bed.
It makes sense. No, it makes sense. I have a friend of mine who's pretty much identical to him. He's also from Florida.
Things like that, so that it is more.
That's the first one you're doing.
I could bring her, yeah. Her name's Nora, she's Plaza. We're hosting a Halloween party on the 25th. I'm gonna send out, yeah, my friend.
Basically just they both channels agree to have.
I'm trying to make it and I told her we did.
I was not been to Delhi at all. I've been, yeah, and that's only because on my way back from I stopped at Delhi and then my train to flight had been 10 hours. So we were
I am there.
That's nice.
Alright, let's go ahead and get started today. We've got a lot to cover. How are we all feeling? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Alright, how are we all feeling about the photography assignment so far? Do we want to talk about some lighting? Yes. Okay. There's actually a really great example that someone brought in today of saying a street light. And the student
Yours looks nice.
came in and said, if you have a street light, what did you say was this? Did you initially say it was soft lighting?
What would it be?
What would it be? Okay, so a street light by itself, on its own, can actually be several different types of light. Okay? You can have, and it depends on one, how you're shooting it. Let's say that your subject is right here. I mean, yay! It depends on how you're shooting, right? If your camera is down here, let me make sure something really quick. Okay, really quick online. You guys can hear us, yeah? Anyone? Yes, awesome. Okay, cool. So if your camera is down here, and your subject's up here, you're gonna end up with something very different, right? Because you're shooting the camera towards the light. What does that automatically make it? Backlighting, right? Because the light is behind the subject, right?
Okay.
Whereas if you shoot this direction, like that, what is it now?
It's hard light?
It depends. I would say it would probably be hard lighting because, can I get a subject really quick? Just someone. Come on down.
I got my steps in.
5 extra stuff.
Oh, no, go ahead and
That
stand
was like
right
7.
in the middle. Sorry, guys. There we go. Okay, so come over here. Face the camera this way. If I do this, that's pretty hard lighting, right?
Yeah.
Because you can see like his shadows underneath his eyes turn like almost black, right? If I do this, what are we working with?
Hard light.
Side lighting, right? It's a little bit of a mix of both side lighting and hard lighting, but if I pull it back,
Oh, that changes it. Oh.
it gets a little softer, right? Here, what you're working with is called the inverse square law. This is getting into physics, but what is light? It is a matter of physics, right? As you have your subject here, what's happening is the light is reaching the subject, and then it's very quickly falling off, right? And that has to do with the distance of the light to the subject as well as the distance of the camera to the subject in the background. Okay? You guys don't need to know about the inverse square law, you just need to know how the light looks when you're working with it. So if I do this, we're actually working with a little bit of a combination of both hard light and direct lighting, right? Here we've got a little bit of a hard light, but it's actually, does anyone have a piece of paper?
Can you bounce light off as well? Like,
Watch what happens when I do this. You're good.
okay. That's
Sort of flames.
I take that away and we have hard light.
oh.
I add it there, we get something a little softer. If I do, it's a little too opaque. If I do that, we get something a little more diffused.
That also be soft.
This would be soft light,
Okay.
okay? So, thank you for whoever's paper I stole, sorry about that. Thank you to our model. So, you get something different depending on the conditions that you're in. It also depends on where the camera is placed, okay? Backlighting is essentially just the light is coming from behind the person, okay? We're gonna look at a couple of examples. Side lighting, what does that mean?
Social factors on the side.
The source of light is coming from the side. Soft lighting and hard lighting is a little bit different. That doesn't necessarily matter where the light is placed all the time. What soft and hard lighting has to do with is sort of the conditions of the light, okay? A good way to think about it is whether or not the light source is diffused, okay? So if you guys go outside right now, it's a pretty sunny day, right? The sun, believe it or not, is a very large light source, but it's very, very, very far away, right? Several million miles away. So what you end up with is this very, very, very small light source casting a pretty wide beam of light on our little blue speck here. And what ends up happening, if you go out at noon, you can see that the shadows can go kind of direct, right? It's actually more, I overdrew there. It's a little bit more like this, right? It happens right in front of you. So you're working with hard light typically when you have a direct light source. But now if you have some clouds in the way, what are those clouds doing? It's serving like that piece of paper that I put in front of my, which was kind of a bad example. You need a little bit of a brighter light source in order for it to be effective, but you're then diffusing the light. The light has to go through something. And if we think about light, let's say that that's my diffuser, right? Here's my light source, and it's hitting that diffuser. Right now, the light is kind of shooting all in straight beams, right? But then it hits this diffuser, and what happens? Everyone go back to your physics class. It scatters around inside the diffuser, and what you get is slightly less light on the other side. Okay? Does that make sense to everyone? Stop me if I'm going too fast. Okay, so we talked a little bit about lighting. I also want to talk to you guys about some various different types of compositions, but we'll get to that in a second. So let's start with a couple of examples. Give me a sec.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead.
For that diffuser, does it have like a specific composition for it for that to happen?
So if I heard you correctly, you're asking if the diffuser has like a specific quality to it. Typically, you don't want anything that is fully opaque. What I mean by that is that it's solid, right? It's hard to send light through something completely solid. You want some degree of transparency. When you're working within professional photography, there are actually calibrated diffusers, and you can get them in different stops. We talked about stops on Tuesday. So if I get a diffuser that is 1.0 stops, what is that doing? It's reducing my quality of light by 1 stop, right? So what I mean by that is I then have to go into my camera, and if I want the same exposure but with softer light, I then have to expose up by 1 stop. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm not expecting any of you guys to do that for this assignment, but really all it is, let me share my screen here. All that is it's literally a piece of paper, or sometimes a silk screen. This is called a scrim. Let's go here. So here, this is called a diffuser sock. This would go over photographic light, and here it says 1 stop of diffusion, right? So what does that mean? When I add that over my light source in the studio, I'm then going to have to go to my camera if I have the exposure right and bump it up a stop, right? So that's what that's doing. You can also end up with these. These are what I prefer using. I'll have to go and find a photo of me using one of them, but it's basically just a giant roll of paper. But the paper is slightly translucent. That's it. And it's on a cardboard cord that you can slide onto a stand and then roll it down and just shoot through that. Or shoot the light through that, basically. And it's 1.5 stop reduction. So I would then have to go to my camera and increase the light, but you're going to get a softer quality to the light. Okay? Yeah.
When you talk about diffusion, there's a second way you can do it. It's not necessarily have to be a translucent object, right? You can just deflect it off a surface which is opaque, and that creates the diffuse light.
So can I borrow you again?
Yeah.
This would be called bounced diffusion. And you can do this several different ways. Come real close to the wall here. Can you turn off the light? Can you please? Yeah. Let's see. Well, actually, they can't see you. So actually, come. I have to do a couple of things. Hang on a sec. Stop sharing that. Okay, now come over to the board here. There we go. Go ahead and turn sideways. So right now you're getting a little bit more of a silhouette just because we're in a dark room. But if you guys were standing on this side, you could see the light bouncing off the screen and onto his face. That's called bounce diffusion. It depends on which way you're directing the light. Thank you.
So if you were to just put the light on directly back, that would still be silhouette, right?
That would be backlighting, which would
Backlighting.
give you a silhouette. So that was a little bit of a bad demonstration. But what was happening is the light is bouncing off of this screen and scattering, and then it's bouncing back. So you're still getting less light. And diffusion has nothing to do with the amount of light or the brightness of light. It has to do with the softness, the way that the light scatters. Okay, yeah.
I was like looking at the screen, it kind of looked cool.
Yeah.
Where were you like positioning the camera for that?
So that camera,
Or no, like the light.
The light?
Sorry.
so the light, all I was doing, I might be able to do this with myself. If I put this up like this, God, this is really bad. So see how you guys are going to be able to see this in class. Online's not going to be able to see it, unfortunately. But see how you're getting a little bit of light bouncing back onto my face? That's still diffused lighting because it's hitting a source, it's scattering, and it's coming back soft. It's much softer than if I were to do this.
Right.
Right? So the better way to look at it, which is why I've worded it this way in Canvas, is hard light versus soft light. And the best way to tell the difference is if the shadows look soft and fuzzy versus if they look hard and straight. Does that help?
When you mentioned about using this bounce diffuse light, right? You said it was going to be considered backlight.
So because of the way that I did it and the way that they saw it online,
okay.
it's going to
Gotcha.
look just like backlighting to them because
Right.
I don't have any exposure control.
Yeah.
Let's say I take a light source and I just put like, let's say blue film around it to make it blue. Would that be diffused light or would that be direct light?
It depends. You're gonna come to realize that's gonna be my favorite answer for most of the rest of the class. It depends on the clarity of that filter, right? So the thing about the filters that I was showing before, they go over the light, not over the camera, or in front of the light. They're not, it's not just a difference of translucence, it's also, yeah, like there's some interference between the particles that are within that material. It's nothing special. It is paper or fabric, okay? It's just how much light it's allowing through that paper or fabric that matters. If you just took a very clear blue gel or blue acetate that's super clear, you're not going to get any diffusion, really. You might get a reduction in the amount of light, but you're mostly just adding color. Whereas if it's sort of a opaque blue as opposed to a translucent blue, then you're going to get some diffusion. Okay,
That
so-
would count as diffusion.
Correct. Yeah. That's getting a little bit more advanced than we necessarily need to go. That we could spend a whole day in the campus photo studio, but for what you guys need to know in particular, it's going to be just that difference between hard light and soft light. But I liked your example of using sort of a street light to show that just having a light source, one light source, you can get all the different types of light, right? So good example. Thanks for bringing that in. I want to share my screen because I want to show you guys some examples of hard versus soft light. I'm going to have to refer to some notes here, so give me a sec, because I pre-selected some. All right, we can see that. Pull up some notes here. I gotta get the right setup going. And Zoom is always in the way. All right, let's take a look at one of my other websites here. I want to show you guys this one. What kind of lighting is that?
Is hard
Soft.
light.
There's a little bit of, so no photo generally ever has like one strict quality of light. There's a little bit of a mix. But someone said backlighting. I would wager it's got a little bit of side and backlighting going on. But it is hard light more than anything. How can you tell? The shadow. Look at how crisp and clean that shadow is. right? If the light source were a little bit closer, you could even get that shadow to be almost a pure black, right? You can also tell by this specular highlight that's happening in the bottle here. It is a needle point for the most part, and it's just hitting and scattering the shadow, okay? How about this? Hard or soft light? Hard light. How about this? How about that?
I think it's all gonna be hard lighting.
So someone said it's going to be all hard lighting. So why is it important that you guys know this? For that reason exactly. When you are designing a website, if you are printing a product, whatever it is that you're working on, you need to know how to direct your photographers, right? If there is a brand that you're working with, they are going to have a photographic art direction. This brand had an all hard lighting art direction, right? So really, there's no modifiers on these lights. I'm doing what's called bare bulbing. And I'm taking the light, normally, if you guys went for school portraits, there's like a big softbox on it or an umbrella, something like that. And they're shooting through that and it's making you nice and pretty and it's making your skin look all soft, right? This is the exact opposite.
So why did they decide to do hard lighting for this product?
Because it's a modern brand, and what does hard lighting look like? What time of day would you say, if this were done outdoors, what time of day would you say this was taken?
Morning to afternoon.
Morning to afternoon. When do you take your vitamins? Morning to afternoon, right? For the most part, usually in the morning. So it's meant to mimic that early morning light. You can see it a little bit better on this end, but the lighting quality is also just slightly warm. And that's meant to give you that, and it's not much, but it's meant to give you that feeling of, I just woke up, it's time to take my vitamins.
Couldn't you also read it as this could just be artificial lighting, which is during like the nighttime?
You could, but it also depends on the context, right? We're putting it on
Yeah,
this countertop.
yeah, but the countertop is why I brought up the point of it could be the artificial lighting. If you put it on something which has more natural tones, it does
Like
have
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this gives the morning.
Yeah, this you feel like you're outside at a
Yeah.
picnic or something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so that one was an easy one to start us off with. Let's go here. What kind of light are we working with here? Why? How can we tell that? I mean, if we look at the specular highlights, we still have some like really small spots of light, but how can we tell this is soft lighting? There's no harsh shadows. There's everything down here looks nice and fuzzy, right? It's really soft. You can see the detail underneath the plate,
Right. It
right?
looks like there is for the
There is.
one with
It's
salt.
the board.
Just
Over here,
Yeah.
there's a hard shadow. So we've got a little bit of a mix going on. This is where I have this shot has
Two sources of light.
three sources of light.
Like stuff.
So
Oh, I see.
there's one source.
I see.
If we're looking at this as a table, there's one source of light coming in front, sort of hitting the whole table, but mostly the turkey right in the middle. And then we also have a source of light in the background on this side, sort of hitting this back end of the mashed potatoes, lighting up some of these sage leaves down here, making sure this isn't too dark back here, giving this glass of wine a little bit of a golden flavor. And then there's also a light on the back side of the table coming this way, giving us this little shadow on the well of salt there.
It is two of your light has a softbox, like the top one and then
Yes.
the one on the one that's over there is not.
So I can actually say from having shot this photo, one of my light sources has a softbox. And that's the main, or what we would call the key light. So the key light is spread out across the whole table because I want to diffuse that light. I want it to spread out, right? The light that's coming from this side, giving this glass a little bit of golden tinge, which is why you are seeing some really crisp specular highlights within the glass there. That is what we call bare bolt. So it's just, I'm pointing the light up and I'm shooting it into the roof, but what's happening is it's giving us this nice hard light, but I have the power turned way down. So that way it's just filling it in on some of the areas where the shadows. And then this backlight that's throwing on here, I have what's called a Fresnel lens on that, which points and sharpens the light really, really crisp. So that's getting a little complex, but by and large, I would say this is soft light.
So is this picture treated, like, is it like adjusted, edited?
Oh yeah,
You know?
oh yeah, but that has nothing to do with the light. You gotta get the light right in camera.
So the light shooting up is to simulate the nice like sunlight bright room, right?
Correct, yeah, so when you're at Thanksgiving, you're going to grandma's house at Thanksgiving is kind of an American thing, so I apologize, but you go to grandma's house and she's been cooking the turkey all day and you get there around 2 o'clock in the afternoon and then you feast yourself and then everyone goes to bed. So that said, you want this like mid-afternoon lighting quality, something where the light is like coming in and bouncing off the floors and it feels really nice and bright. Gives you that warm, like, I'm at grandma's house feeling, right? By the way, this was a photo shoot for a meat injector. There's the meat injector. We did all kinds of stuff.
A lot of food there.
Fun fact, there's the turkey raw.
The actual one.
Yep, that's the actual one.
Oh,
What did you use?
so you
Just one, we only had one. And fun fact, that is also the turkey raw.
what?
This is food styling. I had an amazing food stylist on this shoot. Her name is Jess Swaroff, and she does some really incredible work, as you can tell. This thing is laced in like motor oil and like yellow and gold food coloring, and then just like dusted with pepper and seasonings.
Is that because you had just one and if you were to try and cook it, it's gonna probably
No, it's because do you know how long it takes to cook a freaking turkey?
Right, yeah, that's right.
How do we make money in this industry?
So what about the beef brisket then? Is that also like?
So the brisket, we did something a little bit different. Here's the raw brisket. And then here's the cooked brisket. No motor oil involved here. You go to a restaurant that already smoked the brisket for 18 hours and you say, can I buy a whole brisket? But
So you can eat that afterwards.
yes, on a food photo shoot, you never eat anything afterwards because we go through and we like glue things and it's like this. That is a cider, just like apple juice, that we've added dish soap to make it look more like meat. So you never want to eat anything on a food photo shoot. There's some yucky stuff in there. Okay, so we went over that one. Let's go over this. What are we working with there? Backlighted. Why is that?
The sun is behind the subject.
Got a little bit of a silhouette going on. The sun's in the background. Excuse me. Very good. You guys are getting good at this. Let's go to this one. What are we working with here? Side lighting. And yes, the light does have a slightly hard quality, but it is actually a diffused light. This was a photo shoot for a nonprofit, so I didn't charge for this one. But I had to cart myself out to California for this photo shoot on the same day that they were doing a gala. And photograph all the speakers that were in the gala, turn it around in an hour. It was a day. So me, again, how do we make money in this industry? Time. I took one light because every light you have to set up is more time, right? I took one light stand, one camera, one lens. That was it. We set up, and that was all I had. I also had a softbox. So I put it on, lit it from the right, and took the shot. And the reason you're getting a little bit of a hard light quality is because there's nothing on the other side filling it in, right? So I've got one key light, it's hitting the face, and then it's falling off. But yes, this would be side light. All right, let's try.
I had a question about this
Yeah.
picture. So is the key to like side like photos to have like one portion of the like photo sort of like darken?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a dead giveaway that you're working with side light, which is sometimes a good thing. All right, what do we got here? Hard lighting. Yes, how can you tell? Shadows. Yeah, you've got some really strong shadows happening here. Also, the light appears to sort of be coming from several different directions, right? There is no modifiers here. This is taken outside. That's it. What we were working with though, and the reason why it looks like there's so much light sources coming from different directions is that we were under a partially shaded area. So sometimes shade can give you slightly different appearances, right? We also have a tiny little bit of backlight.
Oh, the fireplace.
There's a fireplace in the background, and that's giving us what is called
But
practical lighting.
Isn't that just more context here though?
Yeah, it's mostly serving as context. There's no real light source coming from that. And again, that applies to what's called, oh shoot, I just said it several minutes ago.
Backlighting.
Nope, fall off. Rule of, nope, square.
Inverse square law.
Thank you. Yes, I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Inverse square law. And the reason that we're not getting any lighting off of that fire is because that fire is too far away to even cast light onto the subject. Very good, so that one is hard light. Let's look, I'm gonna mix it up on you guys a little bit. Let's look at
How would you classify Rembrandt lighting in this?
Rembrandt lighting is a form of hard light.
Okay.
Because what you're getting is this like chiaroscuro effect. Well, actually, sorry, chiaroscuro is different. Rembrandt would still be hard lighting for the most part, but it depends. Rembrandt tends to have this like very even light. So like if this is your nose, you're gonna get a shadow that falls right under your nose. If this is your lips, you're gonna get a shadow that falls right under your lips. Shadow under the eyes. Rembrandt lighting, if you ask me, is kind of ugly. So what we end up doing is we do what's called clamshelling, where you light just like you would Rembrandt. I actually have an example of this. And then you put a reflector underneath so that it fills in some of those shadows. You get the same effect, but it's less ugly.
Like less extreme.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is it just named after like the way that Rembrandt drew his portraits?
That's exactly it. Yeah. What kind of light is this?
Lighting.
Soft lighting, but what kind of soft lighting?
Side lighting.
Side lighting, yes. So here, again, it's that same one light setup, but now I've added in a white fill. And it has nothing to do with background. I just have a giant white reflector off on the side here, pretty close. And you can actually see, if you look in his eyes, there's one light source. I'm just filling in the shadows on this side with a piece of white card. That's it.
Have you removed the background, was it?
No, it is shot on a white background, but he's so far away from the white background that's not really playing a factor. I actually have two lights shooting the background so that it blows it.
Oh, I see.
Yep. Let's see, where do we want to go from here? Let's go to. Let's go here. All right, we've got something a little bit more complex happening here. What's going on?
No, it's soft lighting and backlighting.
What's going on here, though? Shadow. That shadow is a little bit harder than a typical soft light. I mean, yeah, it's a little bit fuzzy, but it's pretty strong in the middle. So where's the light source coming from here? It's coming through here. But also, I know what's over here. There's a giant wall of glass. And believe it or not, glass has a very slight diffusion quality to it, but it also has an amplification quality. So it's doing two things at one time, which is why this office is probably this big from the edge of the table to the corner. It's a very, very, very small space we're working in here. So what I had to do was light it from the outside, shoot through the glass, bare bulbed, And then I also have a softbox, look at this. She's well lit right there, right? So I also have a softbox over here, actually I think it's in the corner, lighting her from the side, which would explain why that part's dark, right? But then this part's light. And then also we have this giant window that's giving us some nice light in the space. So lots to work with there. Also, you have Camelback Mountain in the background.
Also, isn't the shadow darker here because of the edit? To make the blacks kind of pop out a little bit more, because I feel like the is a bit too dark for the kind of lighting situation that we're in.
Not particularly. The reason that that's so dark on the wall there is just because of that light that I have on the outside. Yeah, because I mean, if you look here, the screen monitor is perfectly crisp.
Because I'm trying to see a similar dark pattern on the chair from her.
Right here?
Yeah.
And that's because the light that I have sitting outside the office here
It's
is pointed right at here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're getting a little bit of spill.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
why that's not quite as intense.
Using the monitor, you're getting some shadow on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, of that metal
Yeah.
beam.
Also, that would have played an effect. Had I pointed the light at her from outside the office, what would have happened?
The monitor would cast a shadow on her.
Yeah, you would get a shadow on her from the monitor. Yeah.
It's coming from this way.
Mhm.
What could the shadow be here?
So you're looking at the spatial inflection a little bit differently. That's a corner. And it's protruding into the room. It's not going like this. It's going like this. Yeah. So it's like it's bumping into the room. Yeah. That what was the problem that just happened there? There's a problem with Gestalt, right? Having a little bit of trouble.
Figure ground.
Yeah, having a little bit of trouble figuring out what the figure in the ground is, right? That's actually an optical illusion. Let's see. And I gotta get some stuff out of my way.
So did you intentionally add the shadow in there to make it look like it was going out of the room, like the was, okay.
No, it's there to show that the person was actually there.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, what are we working with here?
Side lighting.
Side lighting. But also what kind of side lighting? Soft side lighting. So these things can play together. What are we working with here?
Hard
A little bit of
Just
hard,
like natural sunlight.
slightly backlit, right? And then I'm actually using a golden reflector underneath it to give it this kind of warm hue on the front here. So it's mostly backlit.
But that's just natural light, right? It's
Yeah, it's all natural light, but it's aided with
And
the
then
golden
with the
reflector. Yeah.
In the last picture, why is it not side lighting and not, or yeah, why is it not?
Because of the angle that the camera's at. It is slightly like side / backlighting. And yeah, the shadow's kind of going this way, but if I weren't putting that golden reflector in front, that shadow would be wanting to go this way. It would be wanting to come a little bit more towards the camera. Okay, what do we have here?
harsh top lighting.
Hard lighting directly over top. Okay. And then what I'm also doing is, so the product has hard lighting, but the background has soft lighting.
But isn't that just because of the distance of the object or the table that you're putting it on from the wall?
No, it's because of the number of lights in
The
the
mirror.
The mirror is what?
Is the mirror not reflecting light?
No, it is.
The mirror is reflecting a little bit of light, but what I have is one light over the top, and then I have a light off to the side with a softbox filling in the edges, right? But the power on the light over the top is really giving a lot of work here.
Is there room like here, like the shadow, the plant of the.
Yep, so there's a light, if this is my scene, there's a light over top and there's a light over here. And then the camera's right here.
Oh, it's closer to the subject.
Yep. All right, we good on that? Everyone's got a good idea of what side, back, hard, soft lighting is? Cool. I mentioned I wanted to talk a little bit about composition. Composition is an interesting thing. Everyone watch your eyes. There we go. I want everyone online to be able to see this I've written out some things up here, and I have a document that is not my source that I'm gonna put into Canvas later. But I think it's a really excellent source, and it's teaching composition a little bit differently. Everyone's heard of the rule of thirds, right? Okay. For the record, rule of thirds looks something like that, right? And you can frame your subject somewhere on one of these thirds, and you can almost guarantee a good composition, right? We all know that already. I'll stay out of the way. So I'm not going to go over that. You all know that, okay? What I'm going to go over are these very different forms of composition, okay? These work for photography, they work for design, they work for anything that is a contained image. Okay, maybe not a full design, but at least a contained image. And what I mean by that is like a website, you can almost have an infinite scroll. Might not work in that situation. Steelyard, okay? The frame up here is that you have a sort of asymmetrically balanced composition where you've got maybe something standing on one side, something on the other side, and then something grounding those two. Right? That's why it's called a steelyard. There's something kind of framing it up. So let's look at an example of a steelyard. Let me share my screen again. We're going to have a lot of screen shares today. I apologize for those of you online. Okay. So, example of steelyard. I had to write these down before I came to class today. Probably should have opened these before class today, so I apologize if I have to do a little bit of scrolling. Someone stop me if you see Candy Link. There it is. All right. Here's a good example of a steelyard. And the reason for that is on one side of the composition, the right-hand side, you have something that feels a little bit heavier. Sorry, guys, you can't see that. Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So over here on this right-hand side of the composition, you have a part of that vertical column, right? Something that feels a little bit heavy. You have something similar on this side, on the left, that feels a little bit heavy, and then you have the water between them that's kind of connecting everything. Okay? It's kind of a bad example of steelyard, but it's the one that I've got. So we went
be asymmetrical.
this one is actually somewhat symmetrically balanced, but you do want to have a little bit more asymmetry typically. So this would really work well as a steelyard if this rock on the right-hand side were much taller. Okay? Frankly, if I could get 4 peaks to just come closer, that would be great.
You do have some other in the foreground, though, like a rock or.
Yeah, so I do have a rock in the foreground, which is aiding the weight that's happening there. Like I said, it's not a great example. And you can look at this and find several of these different compositions. It's just like the elements and principles. They don't work in isolation. Although sometimes you might find some that are nicely isolated. I'm gonna skip balanced scales for right now because I haven't actually found one in my portfolio that is a good demonstration of that just yet, but I might find one along the way. So let's go to O or circular. I'm gonna show you guys.
Is that just like, is it divine right there?
What was that?
Was it divine? I saw something divine.
This one would be a great example of O or circular. It is quite literal. And the idea here is that there's literally an O or a circle somewhere within the composition that's drawing your eye to that O or that circle. It's kind of like a giant hole getting punched into the composition, right? But it draws your eye into it because you want to see what's inside of it. Well, so there are several things at play. These are almost separate from the design elements and principles. These are compositional aids. These are ways that you can compose your image in a way that often feels good and looks nice. Yeah.
I have a question. So why you didn't put the hole on the surds?
On the
You
thirds,
emphasize it more?
because I wanted the clouds in the sky as well. And I
Okay.
wanted that hole to, it's actually on the third. The third is kind of running like this. This is a very odd frame. Actually, let's take a little bit of a detour for a second. We'll jump back into composition in a minute. Does everyone know what an aspect ratio is?
Yes.
Yes? What is an aspect ratio? Someone explain it to me. Ah, you didn't think I'd do that, did you?
I think it's like a standard format of
Frame
like
size.
Frame size, standard format.
of like a medium, like for example, like there's a
6x4 and then
6x4, 3x4.
So
Basically,
kind of
the-
paper sizes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in a paper size, you have at least here in the US. I'm sorry, guys, online. I have to turn this light on, that way they can see. Sorry. Also, my pens are running out because. Yay. So in the US, you have 8.5 by 11. Okay, it's a standard letter sheet. You also have 11 by 17, right? Those are partially aspect ratios. What's kind of cool about this aspect ratio is one is directly half of the other. What's half of 17? 8.5, right?
I mean, isn't that just how papers work though? When you have a
Correct.
A4, A3, A2.
You can do the same thing in photos though. So some standard photo aspect ratios are 2 to 3. And this is what comes out of almost any camera these days. Okay? Is a 2 to 3. Apple has kind of made things a little bit hard on us these days. This is a little bit old now, but Instagram for the longest time used a 1-to-1. What is that? Perfect square, right? So a 2 to 3 looks something like this. For every 2 pixels there is on this side, there are 3 pixels on this side. Okay? It also works like this. Right? For every 2 pixels that are on this side, for every 2 pixels on the short side, there are 3 pixels on the long side. Here, perfect square, no matter how you do it. You can also have, what's the aspect ratio for video? 16 by 9. Okay, so that's going to be what? If this is 9, you have 16 this way. So it is double, almost double horizontal than it is vertical. Okay. The aspect ratio for my photos come in 2 different ways. You have, because I shoot primarily with the medium format camera, you have a 6 by 4.5. It's a weird aspect ratio, but this comes from film. Film has several different aspect ratios. If you are shooting what is called full frame film, you're shooting a 2 to 3. Okay? If you're shooting entry-level medium format camera back in film, that would be a 6 by 4.5. And what that meant was we shot 120 millimeter rolls of film. And that, oftentimes, if you were working on, let's say, a Hasselblad, the Hasselblads were the cameras that went to the moon, okay? You ended up with a 120 millimeter by 120 millimeter square image, okay? What a 6 by 4.5 does is it takes that and it says, let's just make it horizontal and just use that. It's almost square, but not quite. But what does that have, if you're shooting on a roll of film, what does that have the benefit of? You can now fit more images on one roll of film, right? So that was the standard, and then you also had 1-to-1, which was slightly bigger. And then from there, you could go up to a 6 by 7. Yeah, 6, 7. And then from there, you could go to a 4 by 5, which you would think is actually smaller, right? 4 by 5 is smaller than 6 by 7? Actually, no, because now you're working with inches. So here, these are aspect ratios. Now you're working with inches. You also had 5 by 7, and you had 8 by 10, and some ridiculous people had 11 by 14s. Okay? Ansel Adams shot with these 5 by 7 film and 8 by 10 film. Nowadays, because we're working with digital, there's no such thing as an 8x10 digital sensor. That would be crazy. These 4x5 sensors, up until very, very recently, cost about $80,000 just for one camera. Now they've gotten them down to about 15,000. So they're quite expensive cameras. The Nikon that I brought in the other day, that was a 2x3. Okay, that was a Nikon D800, or I'm sorry, a Nikon Z8. And then my 6x4.5, that's a Fuji GFX 100S. So, yeah, you can do some crazy things. Yeah.
So when they make movies or like they use like say red cameras, why do they not use these computations? They use like 1.9:1 and stuff like that. Why do they break it down to decimals instead of just keeping it as whole numbers?
Because film is a whole different beast. Because what's happening, and I am not the film expert, but, and I'm sure either Professor Sagmeister or Professor, hold on, Westover would have a little bit more historical context on it. But you're working, and frankly, the wide format thing that we have now, that is new. Like since probably the late 2000s to the early 2010s, something like that. Prior to that, they actually used a version that was pretty damn close to a 6x4.5. It wasn't quite that, but it was darn close. If anything, it might have even been closer to a 1:1. Christopher Nolan's Oppenheimer, that was filmed on 220, I think. So those are 220 millimeter tall rolls of film, and then you're splicing it down however far for the format of the screen. I think that's correct. Don't
But
quote
then the
me.
aspect ratio of his shots, I mean, like most of the, like it's the shot on IMAX. So it's like 1:1.7.
Yeah, something like that. And frankly, every camera manufacturer in film.
1.43:1.
What was it?
1.43:1 for
Yeah.
full screen.
Video
IMAX
gets-
was 2.2021.
Video gets some weird stuff going on. And frankly, I have enough fun trying to keep my photo stuff in line.
So when you say like 220, does that just mean like on one side it's super?
220 or 120, that is the millimeters of the film. So what that means is a roll of film, we'll say it looks like that. It's just talking about the height here, that distance, 120, 120 millimeters. All right, so we looked at this one in conjunction to O or circular. Let's look at an S-curve example. Give me a sec. Sometimes you might hear it called S-curve, sometimes you might hear it called compound curve. Both are referring to the exact same thing. This one. This one's a little bit harder to see just because it's a vertical image, but what's happening here? Your eye is probably starting somewhere down here, curving up and then back around to the top, or it's starting at the top and curving down around to the bottom. So you get this S-curve composition.
These are amazing pictures, by the way.
Thank you, I appreciate that. I had a lot of fun taking them. I was supposed to be in Telluride in Aspen this weekend, and we decided not to.
So what's the location?
This is in Kilauea, on Kauai in Hawaii. So we looked at S-curve. Let's look at suspended steel yard. Can anyone tell me what a suspended steel yard might be?
Is it just inverse of that?
It's an inverted steel yard. So let's go take a look at this one. This one's a little bit better. Gotta go back.
Peacock there, you see the peacock?
By the way, this is not a plug. This was just the fastest way I could put this together.
Well based though.
Let's see. Which one was I looking for? I was looking for suspended steel yard crown jewel. There it is. There we go.
Oh, yeah.
So you're kind of getting the same thing, right? You get this really big pillar off on the right that feels kind of heavy and weighted, and then the steel yard is happening up above. You can also call it a suspended crane. That happens sometimes where it looks like there's a little crane and then something's dropping on one side and there's something holding it down on the other side. That's how you create that balance. So that's one. Silhouette. This one, let's see if I have a good, oh, I do. Here's silhouette. It's not quite, but it's close. You can't really see much of the color because it's all being lit from the back, right? It gives you a nice silhouette. This one I think we're all pretty familiar with. I saw a way better example of triangle. I'm still going to show you mine, but then I'll show you the follow-up one. So triangle. That should be pretty obvious, yeah? That one's pretty good. The better example that I saw that's a little bit more subliminal.
Ooh. I need to watch this.
It's very good. I highly recommend it.
It was, I think it's out now.
Okay, can you see the triangle?
Yep.
Yes.
So there's actually several happening here. There's a triangle in the sky between the buildings.
Yeah.
And there's a triangle with the kids, right?
Shadows kind of complete it.
Fun fact, there's some subliminal messaging happening here. Did anyone see this movie?
I just know about
Does
it.
everyone mind if I give a couple
No,
of
please,
spoilers? Well, I will tell you this. There are underpins of witchcraft involved in the movie.
It's like puppeteering.
And
Bro,
one of the things.
I might not know what it is.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Don't get spoilers. One of the things that you're getting here, an upside down triangle is a symbol of the occult.
Yeah.
Right? So this upside down triangle between the buildings is sort of subliminally sending you that message. Okay?
In design history, didn't we talk about an upside down triangle as well?
We did, yeah. We talked about the upside down triangle filled with pink.
Yeah.
That was a symbol that the Nazis used to persecute LGBTQ people.
Yeah.
And then, actually, I think it's a right side up triangle.
Oh,
But when you turn it upside down, that was then used as protest for the US's engagement in Vietnam, I think? Something like that.
yeah.
Also, something that's happening here that I'm actually just picking up on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, they missed it. Had they had 6 kids here, what would that have been?
Double sign?
One more
Still, yeah.
symbol to the occult, right? 6.
Thanks, yeah.
So, while this is great because it's following the rule of odds, which we'll get to in a second, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They like just missed the symbolism.
What if it's like metaphorical? You're the 6.
That's
Oh,
possible.
yeah, there we go.
They're running towards you.
Yeah,
They're actually running away from me.
Oh, you're the last one.
Perhaps
You're
they're
the
running
last one. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're running away.
So sorry, you said it is an inverted triangle over here.
Yeah.
What about the picture that you had on previously with your silhouette there?
Here?
Yeah, this one. This is an inverted triangle there too, right?
There is an inverted triangle, but I'm not trying to send you guys occult messages. Yeah.
Would that be considered inverted triangle there?
Yeah, actually, you could look at this as a triangular composition. There's actually several triangles that are.
Yeah, right.
Also,
Fun fact, this is actually my most sold print for some reason.
I can see it though.
I can see it.
Oh,
I guess-
I feel like there's so many better photos in my portfolio,
But it
but
makes you feel like you're feels like freedom, you know? It's
Yeah. it's the martyred artist syndrome, right?
also, it also follows the stirred, right?
It follows what?
The stirred, like.
Rule of thirds.
Oh, rule of thirds, yeah. So you can almost put any image on the rule of thirds, which is
Follow it.
why I don't
Yeah.
teach it. And it'll still work in some degree. Because really, all the rule of thirds is saying is put it in one of these boxes or put it on one of the grid lines. You really can't mess that up, can you? There's one for cross here. I don't have a great example, but this one's probably the best that I could come up with. And this is even still drawing a pretty difficult line, if you ask me. The way that I'm calling it across is that you have this like straight up and down, and then the arms kind of almost make a cross.
Could you see the mountains at the back?
You could, but that's pushing the
Okay, fair enough.
the mountains in the back aren't really the subject here. The subject is the tree.
So would it have to be that kind of situation where the subject itself is across, or can you do
Correct.
like? Okay,
Yeah.
because
So
of this.
all of these are the subject. They're all focused on the subject. Now, sometimes the difference between the subject and the background and the foreground can blend. You end up with that gestalt
Yeah.
thing going on. So in those situations, it can be a little bit iffy, but pick your poison. Let's see, what else do we got here? So we did pyramid, we did cross, let's do radiating lines, yeah? Let's see. What did I do for radiating lines? Kaleidoscope. That's a good one for radiating lines.
The Tyndall effect,
What was that?
the Tyndall effect from the
I haven't heard
sun,
that one.
where you have like the sun, and then you have clouds, and then you have those rays of
Sort
light.
of, yeah. This one I did something a little different. So you have this one central focal point, and then the lines are radiating out from it,
Huh? You should play it.
right?
Why have you seen this? It's a peacock game all the time?
You're the one who's like,
So we've got radiating lines. There's also an L composition, and I want you guys to spell that correctly. It's ELL, not the letter L, although it is shaped like the letter L. You can also call this a rectangular composition, although you're not looking for a perfect rectangle, you're looking for half of the rectangle. So an L composition, I have that one selected as like HIJK. It's on the previous page.
No, the pictures are so nice.
So this is kind of that
Multiple.
Tyndall effect, is that what you said?
yeah, kind of.
Let's see, hidden link. Let me pass it.
There was one. Yeah, this one, the one below.
There it is, thank you. I was right next to it.
Oh, no.
So here, you're getting that L composition, because you have this tree up here that kind of creates the high beam of the L, and then it kind of comes down to form the landscape. It's a little bit of a bad example, but it works.
So the picture that you took, the desert tree, if you shifted your camera a little to the right or the left, that would have been an L.
So the object is it like?
Not so
like-
much. Yeah, so you want the subject to create it. So here you're getting the L because you've got this tall vertical piece that's creating the stem of the L. And then you have this area over here that's creating the baseline of the L. So again, this one's forcing it a little bit, but I think it illustrates well. Then you have the 3-spot or the rule of odds. We talked about the rule of odds a little bit.
Sir, the one
yeah.
that's next to the picture that you just showed higher, right? Called higher.
This one here.
This could be L as well then. No?
I feel like because there's so many subjects,
I
it
guess
doesn't.
Yeah.
this one would be a little bit more a pattern than an L. I see what you're seeing. It's kind of a reverse L where it's going from here down and that. That's forcing it a little bit.
Maybe pattern then, like I said.
I would say it's a little bit more pattern, if you ask me. Or you could even, you might be able to push it into diagonals, but it's still somewhat vertical.
Yeah.
Okay, 3-spot. Sorry about that. 3-spot, deep blue. This is one of my favorites. There we go. You guys see the 3 spots? 1, 2, technically 4, but 3. And the reason that this is still 3 is because from a Unity perspective, your mind subconsciously groups the information on the right.
Is it like, is the focal point is the front, right? Or
I would say the focal point is this over here. And then you also sort of end up in a golden spiral, right? You kind of have to stretch the golden spiral a little bit because the aspect ratio is off. But it would start over here and loop around and then come up this way.
So the item that's under the water one, is it blurry on purpose? Or?
So the water is super still, and this is about a 10 to 15 minute exposure.
Oh,
Oh.
It is that.
So the water is moving underneath and that's what's giving you that blurry effect.
So what software are you using?
Super freaking high. We're probably at like
Oh.
32 or something like that.
Oh, I
But
see.
Also done a little trick to my camera to help me elongate that exposure, and I basically put photographic sunglasses on it. It's called a neutral density filter. And you screw it on the lens and it darkens your lens. It's like putting sunglasses on your camera, basically. Yep. And then on top of the neutral density filter, I've also added a polarizing filter so that you can see through the water a little bit. Little tricks. Okay.
So
So we
it's
do.
cropped, right?
I'm sorry?
Is the photo cropped?
Yes. Yeah, so this is one of those other weird aspect ratios that I do. This is a 1:3 aspect ratio. So we did rule of 3. We talked about pattern a little bit, but I think I probably have a better one for pattern. Does anyone in here have trypophobia? I have a little bit of trypophobia.
How about
I
this?
understand it, but I'm not
Yeah, same.
Oh, I didn't put a big one in there.
gonna.
I think you guys can see that. Yeah. So that's a good example of pattern.
Is that one broad?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. So maybe this one has it.
Where was that?
The museum.
There we go.
The broad museum.
Now you can see it a little better. So that's a good example of pattern.
This way sound like a
Group maths.
I gotta feel it.
This is so nice.
There's also like concrete curved walls inside. It's really cool.
Oh, yeah.
No, it's not hers.
It's not always, because it has that kind of feel to it though.
The one where you see the.
You see the train station that she created in Sudbury.
Here's a good example of group maths. Right? You got one sort of isolated subject, but most of the mass is kind of in a group here on the right and central. Yeah. So that one's a good example of group mass.
She died pretty young.
Yeah, she died at some time.
18 years. Like, one time I don't know. What?
Me? Alright, you guys can see that one, yeah?
This is like iconic.
Yeah, this one's a good example of central interest. You could also look at this one as O or circular.
Yeah.
Right? But there's not really a connected O up here. So really your focal point goes to this mesa on the other side of the river.
What about like, could you consider this as S?
If you were photographing it from the other side, yes. So if you were standing on either the right or the left, and then shooting it like maybe top down, like really high,
Because like the background kind of like breaks it into like maybe like.
it would be a really forced curved
Yeah.
X. So I would say no, but I mean, everyone looks at something a little bit different, right?
So this is not a wide angle lens.
Oh yeah, this is like 14 millimeters. Yeah. Actually, 14 would be about. Okay, scattered. Here's a good example of scattered mass, right? Lots of focal points in a lot of different areas. Your eye is probably drawn to this one here, but there's still a lot scattered around the back, right? Diagonals. No, this one's the Walt Disney concert.
Oh, Frank.
Right next door to the road. So that one's got a lot of diagonals in there. And then one of my personal favorite compositions to work with, the tunnel. If you guys spend 15 minutes on my portfolio, you will see this composition used over and over and over and over again.
There's also your War of the Worlds
poster
Yep,
was also.
that also has a tunnel. And what's interesting about this is if you talk to any like formal artist, they would say that putting the focal point at the center of your image is almost like a recipe for disaster. It just works for me. So
I
this
think it's the
tunnel,
easiest to understand though.
it is the easiest to understand. And
Because
also like
For people who may not be as artistically inclined, it's just like they understand what's happening, they kind of get what you're trying to represent.
you don't have to do a whole lot of work to get here,
Yeah.
right?
It's also more focused.
Yeah, more focused. And you could move to the right or to the left a little bit. In my opinion, it makes it feel just a little bit off. But I mean, there, right next to each other, you have two images that use that. Here's another one.
Somebody in the middle. All
This one also has some leading lines, right? This one's not quite as tunneled, but it's still using the same principles because it's actually just flipping it on its head. Here, you got the lines going up, lines going down, you're focused right in the middle.
If it was still water and you could see like the reflection of the bridge, then I think you would get
Yeah.
it perfectly.
And I'm blurring it just a little bit so it doesn't feel so focused.
Would this also be considered as like balanced? It's like it's halfway.
Yeah, a lot of, so every image is balanced in some way, right? Which actually brings me back to this, you have balanced scales, that's a little different. I was really struggling to find one, at least in my portfolio, that kind of followed that mindset. There's another one for diagonals right there. You could probably look at this one here, Duo, as being balanced scales, although it's not perfectly balanced scales. Let's see. Trying to find. Because really with balanced scales, you kind of need two subjects. And they kind of need to be perfectly balanced.
What about the building? If you consider the
Up here,
sides, yeah,
this would be more
each
triangle,
face of it.
right?
But if you were to consider the face of each building as a subject, I mean,
Yeah.
again, I guess that's forced.
To me, I feel like that's a little forced.
Tunnel is not focal point, it's perspective, it's just tunnel.
You have a little bit of focal point perspective in a tunnel. You're just seeing the focal point, the perspective a little bit better.
Even this one into the jungle.
Right here? Yeah, so that one's a tunnel in a slightly different way, right? I'm only using leading lines on the bottom to bring you into the tunnel. And that's really what's kind of fun to me is like, let's find how many different ways we can do each of these compositions. Because then that's when you start entering the space that feels really unique and interesting. Trying to see here. This one might, yeah, not quite. Trying to find a good example of balanced scales here, that way I can show you guys. Most of my stuff is either super balanced or super imbalanced.
So I seen a picture of yours, that was the San Francisco Bridge.
Yeah, that one, the perspective throws off the balance. If I shot it right, straight on, we would be in better shape.
Wouldn't your tunnel example also be balanced?
Yeah, but it does tunnel a little bit better. Like that's the thing. And honestly, if you ask me, balanced scales is just a boring composition. But that's my taste, maybe not yours. Which is why it's really hard for me to find in my portfolio because I never shoot it.
Purple sky is real.
What was that? Purple skies? Yeah, those are real, for sure.
But like the saturation has to be like slightly touched, right?
Not so much. It depends on the hour that you're shooting at, right? If you're shooting at blue hour, you're gonna get blue light. If you're shooting a little past blue hour, you're gonna get slightly more purple light. Yeah, the balance scale thing is real hard for me to. Well,
There we
okay,
go.
here's one. I wouldn't say the scales here are perfectly balanced, but it's doing the trick, right? You got one thing over here, one thing over here, and you can kind of see that they're taking up the same balance and the scale is balancing out, right? So we went through all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 of these. Any questions? How are we feeling about composition?
Did you go to scatter?
Did I go through which?
Scatter.
Scattered, I did. That one was the brittle bush one. That's scattered. Okay. Awesome. So, how are we feeling about our photography assignment now? Good?
Good.
Sorry. There we go. That's a little easier on the eyes. As you guys are exploring these photos, my recommendation is don't use a real human subject. It could be as simple as, actually, we have lighting happening here. It'll be hard for maybe online to see, but what way is the shadow going here? Going this way. Why is that? Because the light's right there. So we're actually getting, it's
similar to like.
it's painting as hard light,
Yeah.
but you're getting a little bit of diffused light as well because you have multiple light sources. Versus if I just do, I'm gonna get the wrong one, watch. Yep. There, if I just do that, now it's really a hard light source and it's being lit from the side. Right, just looking at that marker. Guys, just get in the habit of taking way too many photos. There we go. And the reason that I say that is you can always buy more storage space, right? I've started using, and this is a really expensive thing, so I don't expect you guys to do this, but I've started using Box.com as my storage because it is infinitely, you can add whatever you want to that. I have 18 terabytes and it still costs me as much as I would have 1 terabyte or 1 gigabyte. So you don't probably need to do that just yet, but just, I haven't met a designer that isn't a hoarder in some way. I think if you go back and you look at some old YouTube videos of like Massimo Vignelli or Michael Beirut, they've got like a hoard of books. I think if you go back and look at Herman Miller, he's got a bunch of books and just like shit everywhere. For me, my hoard is digital, right? And the reason that we're oftentimes hoarders is that we never know when we're going to need that little piece of inspiration, right? So get really good at not just hoarding digital things, but also naming your digital things so that you can go back and find that thing when you're like, 10 years ago I took this photo and now I can use it. I do that all the time. As a matter of fact, I've gotten so into the habit of every time we visit a new national park, I take a photo with my nice camera of me and my husband. And now the ASU is doing like a bio of me. And they're like, we really want photos of you at national parks. And I'm like, I have just the thing for you. So it's like, you never know when that thing might come up and you're like, oh, I can use this now. I heard fonts from ages ago. I think half of them are probably old now. But you come across this weird font that you're like, ooh, that's really cool. I could use that on something sometime. So just get in the habit. That's really what I want you guys to think about as you're doing this assignment is, how can I get good at taking a picture? You don't have to be a photographer. You just have to be good at taking a picture that shows what you want it to show. Okay? Any questions before we leave? Yeah.
Does one need to buy a camera, like a professional camera?
Do you need to buy one or you want to buy one?
I want it.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
They're very expensive. And you have to ask yourself the question if it's worth it. Guys, this, I just upgraded and
Do you like it?
I upgraded from an iPhone 12, so I paid significantly.
I also have a 14 Pro Max. I bought this
Yeah.
last, but someone else has one too.
Guys, this thing does some wild shit. It takes raw photos,
Yeah.
which is pretty crazy. It takes 48 megapixel photos, although it's doing some really fancy math to get there. It's not actually 48 megapixels. It's actually 24, and then they're scaling it up.
Yeah.
But do the thing that you have with the lens,
The
it's
two
a
X.
similar way of doing
You
it.
can buy lenses for your cameras now, it's crazy. So, I don't think unless you're gonna be doing photography professionally, I don't think you need a DSLR. Save your money. Alright, online, we're all good here. Have a great evening.
You get the point. Same, I go